All right, I'd like to welcome everyone on behalf of the Board of Commissioners to the Western Charles County Business Roundtable. And the idea of bringing business leaders together simply to have a conversation about what's best for Western Charles County and how we can better put our heads together to do what's best and to uplift Western Charles County. It has been a labor of love. The idea came up a while back, and if you haven't seen Evie Hungerford and Sue Greer and Marcia Keefe's infomercial that we did together, it was really awesome. It was spur of the moment, and when good people come together to do good things, it really comes easy. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I want Commissioner Collins to speak, but I want to say this one thing, that the hallmark, I believe, the hallmark of good leadership is to set aside all of our political differences, our personal agendas, for one common good, and that's for the betterment of our county. And for that, I commend you and I respect you, each and every one of you, for being here, because you could be a lot of different places today. So thank you so much. With that, Commissioner Collins.
Yeah, I'd like to echo my appreciation for Commissioner Davis in particular in taking the leadership and establishing this forum. Many of you know that I'm from this part of the county. I grew up in Bryan's Road, and as I was driving down 210, my recollection was a 210 where you had an Indian Head that had stores and opportunities in terms of commercial development in our county. The base was the primary economic development engine in the entire county at that time when I was growing up. I see tremendous opportunities still exist in this part of the county, and I'm excited about the idea of putting together this type of forum, putting together leaders within the community, particularly those that have an interest in the western side of the county, to discuss further the possibilities, the many options that exist here in Western Charles County. So again, on behalf of the entire Board of Commissioners, I'd like to thank you all for being participants in this event.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. Next, I would just like to mention that county staff will be coming in and out. We expect the planning director, and we have economic development here, so they'll be coming in and out. And I'll introduce them as they stop in. I hope that they might be here for questions if we have any immediate questions as we move forward. I am going to briefly introduce our facilitator and let her take it over from there. We have with us Ms. Andrea Bernot, and I've asked her to introduce herself, but I will tell you that she's a real firecracker. She comes highly recommended, and she has she used to work for DBED, and she is going to lead us through this, and I'm really excited to have you. So without further ado, Andrea, please take over.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much. It is really my honor and pleasure to be here today. I commend the town and the county and the commissioners and everyone who came out. This is such an important first step. It's an ongoing process, but listening tours always are, and they're never easy, because oftentimes you hear things you don't necessarily want to hear. But they also reveal a lot of attributes, and they reveal a lot of interest and insight. And I can tell you, after almost 30 years in government and nonprofit management and economic development and in destination marketing, that's all I'm going to say about my background, by the way. It's a process that works, and I've seen it time and time and again, so I commend you all for being here. Briefly, I will tell you, again, my name is Andrea Bernot, and I have worked for state, local, federal government on and off for the better part of 25, 26 years. And a few years ago, I decided to chuck it all. I left a great job with the governor and with the State Economic Development Agency to start my own marketing consulting business, my own little niche economic development practice. I chucked it all. I moved to the shore after 25 years in Baltimore City and County. And I also decided to start a television production, which I will entertain you with later, stories of what that's been like, but it's all about little airports. So I'm waiting to meet your airport manager, because they are fascinating little spots of culture and commerce and community as well. So that's Airfare America. Let me just tell you briefly how we've organized today. I think it's helpful to understand kind of what's the framework for the session, and then if you have any questions, we can stop and do that. The first is we're just going to do some introductions, and we're going to do introductions a little bit differently. So be ready, if you've got a Post-it pad, to write down your vision for Western Charles County with a Sharpie or with a pen, and we're going to put it up on the board, a little bit like an elevator pitch, and I'll explain to you how we'll do that. We'll have some corridor snapshots. I think it's important, again, for everybody to have a same baseline of information about county data and statistics, about the town moving forward, and about the base. So we'll give a little bit of a snapshot. And then we're going to do a SWOC, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges facilitated session. It's not going to be a long SWOC. So the one thing I would tell you is we're going to have to be brief in this, and we'll put some ground rules down and some techniques and some tools that you can use if you've got an idea that you didn't get a chance to articulate fully, whether you're sitting here as a panelist or whether you're sitting here as a public, to make sure that all of that information is captured. And it's also why we're recording, so that the nuances of some of the ideas aren't lost. So we'll get through the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities and challenges, and we'll walk through how that will happen. And then we're going to have some breakout sessions, 4 breakout sessions that we would ask you to choose. We're not going to assign which of those breakouts you'd like to participate in. Both our panelists and our public members will participate in the breakouts. So again, if you're someone that doesn't like to speak out, believe it or not, a few years ago, I actually couldn't do this. Then they made me stand up in front of 2,000 people at a tech conference, and ever since then, they can't shut me up. So, but I used to not be able to do this. So we've got these great little sheets, if you want to record some of your thoughts as we're going through, and we've passed out a number of them. Again, you know, just gives you a chance to kind of think through and align your ideas with the framework, so it will make it easier when we post this convening, go to report out and find those common denominators and priorities for action to come back to the community. It'll all fit together like a nice, neat puzzle. From the breakouts, we'll have reports. Again, brief reports, 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. Get your priorities and highlights. And then we'll have a wrap-up. If we've got time, which I don't think we will, we might share lessons learned. If not, think about your lesson learned, and you can share it with Marcia and Commissioner Davis by email.
Yes.
We would like all the panelists to introduce themselves today by telling us what your vision for Western Charles County is in 10 years. And the way we're going to ask you to do that, not to oversimplify it, is to simply state, in 10 years, Western Charles County will be a place where you can, or however you're comfortable saying that, and a 30-second vision. And sometimes those visions are the things that serve as our best guideposts. So I'm going to start with Marcia, since she's...
Ryan.
I was going to start with you because I thought you'd be most ready.
I'm Marcia Keith. I am the Business Development Manager for Retention and Expansion for Charles County Economic Development. Thank you all for being here. My vision is that in 10 years, Charles County will be a place where you can, Western Charles County, excuse me, will be a place where you can live, work, and play, and enjoy a high quality of life with a good amount of opportunity for recreation, for commerce, and a lot of balance in the commercial and environmental activity in the western part of the county.
Great. And she's going to fit that on one Post-it by using a very thin Sharpie. Okay, Ryan.
I'm Ryan Hicks, Town Manager, Town of Indian Head. Western Charles County in 10 years will be the place that we all seem to always talk about, the place that we all remember when we remember all of the stores and the gas stations and the bowling alleys and the place to be. So in 10 years, I see that Western Charles County will be the place to be.
Nice.
Put that on your Sharpie. I'll put it
Dennis,
on your.
can I ask you to introduce yourself and give us your vision?
Yes. I'm Dennis Chappell. I'm president of the Indian Head Defense Alliance, also a small business owner and a retired Navy employee. My vision for Western Charles, in 10 years, Western Charles County will be home to a national center of excellence for energetics and related activities, and with vibrant development in Western Charles, taking advantage of our location. And that's mine.
Well, thanks for that introduction.
Over to you, Amy.
Good morning, I'm Amy O'Donnell, and I'm the Deputy Technical Director of the former Indian Head Division and the newly merged DoD Technology, now Indian Head Division, right here inside the gate. So my vision, and I hope it doesn't take 10 years, it would be my vision not to take 10 years to reach the vision, is that the Western Charles County zone will be as critical to the composition of Charles County's success as the rest of Charles County is, and that's evident with economic vitality and stimulus, and you can see it as you drive into this particular part of the corridor, that it's viable.
Okay, Vince Hungerford, Western Charles Business Association. I worked at the base here for 30 years, and I was also in the Air Force for quite a while. So anyhow, my vision would be maybe to retreat a little bit and have some of the things we had here before. I went to school on the base. I played golf on the base. I'd like to do that again. So I'm hoping that the base will withstand the future BRAC that we all should be working for. So I live right up the road. I'm born and raised local yokel. So I'm looking for the betterment of the western section and the county.
My name is Sue Greer, and I'm the chair of the Charles County Chamber's Economic Development Commission. And if you ask me what my vision would be, it would be in 10 years that the western side of the county is the model for economic development. And in being the model, that it is a center for excellence for energetics technology, for also advancing related to our regional airport studies related to aeronautical engineering, aviation operations and functionings, and that we develop an economic base that supports and complements both the base and the airport, but does not depend upon them. And that also we balance that by preserving our natural assets so that our citizens have a beautiful place to both work and play.
Good morning. I'm Kwasi Holman, Director of Economic Development for Charles County, and I see Western Charles County in the future as a very connected community, one that's connected by not only Metro Bus, but by a strong retail presence where appropriate, lots of research going on, obviously a strong base and some developments that complement the base's location. And I've got some active thoughts in mind, so I'm hoping by a 10-year period, we will look back and say, this was where it all started.
I'm Paula Martino, and I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Southern Maryland Association of Realtors. As realtors, we'd really like to see the town of Indian Head reestablish its sense of place, to become the community that it once was. I think Vince and I share that desire, such that we are no longer driving down the corridor of 210 and looking at boarded commercial spaces, but those that are full and thriving, with a population center that can support it. We'd like to see the western side of Charles County establish itself as a community that has good, vibrant schools, a population center, opportunities for employment, so more of our citizens can live and work here and not commute out of the county. We'd like to see a transportation infrastructure in place that supports that as well, that supports our base, that supports our airport, and that supports an economic sustainability that's going to be necessary for the western side of the county to thrive. We'd also like to see some of our very beautiful natural resources in the western side of the county more accessible to the public. so they can too appreciate the beauty of Chapman's Landing State Park, for example, and other places. They do exist, they're lovely, but I think we can all agree they're not as accessible to county taxpayers as they should be.
I'm Steve Kensinger. I'm president-elect for the Charles County Chamber of Commerce, and I follow quite a few of the sentiments that have already been said around the table. I certainly hope this is not a 10-year vision. I do hope that it happens much faster, and I completely agree. I'm a senior vice president for Old Line Bank, and as I see banks and other businesses closing up shop in an area that, you know, holds one of the largest employers in Charles County, it should be an area that is immediately recognizable as a place to do business, to bring in new retailers, residents, and to create jobs. And this part of the county has all of that potential, and I'm hoping that it happens faster than 10 years.
My name is Steve Bunker with the Nature Conservancy. Every time I come to Indian Head, I'm struck by the fact that you're surrounded by water, but you would never know it. And you know, I think that's an asset that the town should really work on. They should revitalize the town with a focus on waterfront, and it should become the catalyst for the rest of western Charles County for growth and access to some of the natural resources and amenities that are actually here. But once again, if you drive down 210, you would not even know they were here.
Let me just interrupt real quick, because I've heard a couple of people reference the fact that I would hope that it won't take 10 years. And I think everyone in this room would probably share that sentiment with you, and we agree. So we're using that 10-year as because it will have already happened. It will have happened in 2 years or 5 years or 7 years. So I just want to be clear, nobody wants things to take 10 years. So we'll be talking about it, we'll be buzzing about it in 10 years.
Good morning. My name is Betsy Burien. I'm the Executive Director of the Charles County Chamber of Commerce. And certainly what Sue articulated is exactly what I have thought as I've watched the various committees that we have and our very good members work toward the advancement of this area. To put it generally, I would like Western Charles County to be a place where people both live and work, with businesses, employment opportunities, and other amenities that attract the entire region. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Dennis Shesley. I'm the mayor of the town of Indian Head. And in 10 years, Western Charles County will be the place to enjoy our Potomac and Mattawoman Creek recreational and environmental opportunities, as well as to strike off and enjoy our local heritage venues in the area here.
Hi, my name is Sheila Zatow. I represent the Business Alliance of Charles County and also a business here in Indian Head, Advanced Vision Systems. And we do support the naval base, and I keep wanting to call it NOS because I was here as a little girl and that's what we called it. But, and you know, 210 was our playground. I would love to see that happen again. And we were, you know, a community where everybody knew everybody and we were very close-knit. I think some really important things are we need no boarded up buildings. We need the businesses down here. And to do that, I think we need to become a place that everybody recognizes as being very business friendly. We need to make it easier for businesses to open their doors and want to come down here. We need better public transportation. So again, people can, you know, work where they live, even to the point of having enough businesses that it's, you know, walking accessible. The water, accessibility to the water, I think is key to making this be a vibrant place again.
Nice, business friendly, that's a good one. Making it easier for business to do business. Commissioner?
I don't want to continue to be a romantist of what the past was, but I think in many ways the past offers tremendous opportunities for a vision of the future. What I would like to see in the next 10 years is more of an appreciation of the very basic resources and opportunities that exist in this sector of the county. To fully expand on those opportunities, to provide potential options as it relates to economic development here in our county, recognizing the proximity that 210 offers to the District of Columbia and opportunities that exist as it relates to building a vibrant economic development center.
Good morning, I'm Gil Bosman. Side note, I just took off today, first airplane to take off from Maryland Airport, new runway. Projection 10 years from now, the airport will possibly be 6,000 feet. It will probably be the closest airport, it is the closest airport to Washington D.C., which will attract a lot of industry or big businesses. My vision was, begin with Fortune 500 corporations moving in, you know, doing the operations in Charles County instead of the district or Northern Virginia. It's going to be, as far as I can tell, any property around the airport, including the tech park, will probably boom. Thank you.
My name is Evie Hungerford, and I was born and raised here, and it was my playground, too, a few generations earlier, I might add. The Indian Head Center for the Arts is a cultural organization and a nonprofit. We are beginning to be and will continue to be an economic driver in the community. It's a growth industry that supports jobs, generates government revenue, Reuben, and is the cornerstone of tourism. The programs generate here do an awful lot for children, and we are concentrating on doing this even more so. We attract audiences, we spur development and support jobs, and again, we are revenue to the county. And with our vision, we will have a building that is two-story that will give us a place to have dance lessons, maybe I'll teach some, tutoring and what have you in the town, the Indian Head Center facility that the town generously allows us to rent from them. Thank you.
Hi, as you know, my name is Deborah Davis, and Western Charles County, excuse me, is my resident district. And in 10 years, I envision that Western Charles County is a place where businesses thrive, where jobs are abundant, and where people come to visit because of Western Charles County's unique identity, spotlighting all of its resources. So we really need to find an identity, for a new identity, I believe, for Western Charles County. Thank you.
Hi, Ed Rice, the Vice Mayor of Indian Head. I'll use the word vibrant again. I've heard it several times around the table. Vibrant community taking advantage of proximity to the water for recreational activities. People have also mentioned that. But also providing a focused commercial sector to service both the needs of the naval base and the local residents.
My name is Doris Spencer. I am President and CEO of the Southern Maryland Black Chamber. And like many of you have around the table today have said, I see Western Southern Maryland as a place to live, work, and play. And also a place to preserve its carrion environment with the access not only to water, but the other beautiful areas in Western. But also, for the chamber, it's around business. And to keep more people off the highway, providing opportunity jobs for them.
Peggy?
Hi, Peggy Palmer, Chair of the Indian Head EDC. In 10 years, developers will have discovered our small jewel of a town here and will have filled every single possible building, possibly tearing down some and building more beautiful buildings. We'll have a thriving arts and entertainment district built around the Black Box Theater. We'll have restaurants and retail and a huge waterfront development where the Washington Post property is right now. We will have engaged citizens who have a sense of place, pride in place, and identity with the place that's a draw for people to want to live and work here.
My name's Craig Renner. I'm president of the Chamber of Commerce. I work with St. Charles Companies, and I guess I would start out with a caveat. As somebody who works in land development, 10 years, I can tell you, is not a long time. A lot can take a lot of time for over 10 years for things to develop. And, I applaud Gil. I'm very happy to hear today that the first airport or the first plane took off from the new airline. But pointing out that Gil's been working on that since at least 1993. So this is some of these things that I think that we all envision for Charles County and for the western side particular. Can take 10 years, it can take 20 years, and in the case of what we just heard at Gil today, sometimes it can take 30 years and longer. So to my mind, what's needed is a long-term vision where the county and the state, but I think particularly couldn't talk about the county today, helps to foster and develop the right mix of a tax policy, of educational policy, of land use policy that can help the Indian Head and the western side thrive. And then what all of us can do as political leaders, as leaders of institutions, of business, of social organizations, of county and local government, is build a political coalition that will continue to work and join that vision and work toward it to make sure that it happens over 10 years, hopefully, but over as long a time as it takes to make the western side of Charles County thrive, as we see other areas of the county thrive.
Excellent. Did any panelists join us since we started? Oh. We'll let her get started. We were just doing introductions, name and organization, and then what your vision is. Elevator speech. In 10 years, Western Charles County will be a place where what?
My name is Julian Green. I represent Eli Real Estate and specifically the children of Joseph Eli, who was the general partner. What was the next thing I'm supposed to?
You can think about it, and we'll come back in. It was in 10 years, Western Charles County will be a place where your vision.
Locals, and by local, I mean the Washington area. They will come here like they go to Alexandria or Georgetown or even further out to Luray. They'll come here because we have one of the most magnificent pieces of land around. I don't know if any of you ever go over to the Navy base and stand on that water and look at that point. It is incredible. I have to say, I'm going to just add this because I think it's possible. I really do think. I came to the United States in 1963 as a mere child, I shall add. Definitely. And I lived in Virginia, in Arlington. And I remember with my friends, we would rent a car, an Impala convertible to be exact. And we used to take trips around the area. And we went out to what is now called Potomac, and an area called Potomac Village, which existed of nothing but green fields. Nothing, there was nothing there. And maybe one little, tiny little shopping center with a deli in it that you could get a sandwich. And the same thing with downtown Bethesda. It was an avenue with a couple of stores on it. So, guys, it's out there. We got the bottles. We've just got to do it. Because it's possible, I believe, completely.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, for your vision, if you can get it to one Post-it or two, I saw you had it on two, Peggy, and put it up on the board. I mean, I think you've all heard there's been a lot of common denominators here and truly foundational building blocks. And I agree that it is amazing what can happen in 10 years and in less than 10 years. And I will add this because I'm not going to editorialize today, although when we're done, I'm happy to editorialize and give you my 2 cents. But as I drove down here, and I'm somebody that knows this state pretty well. I served as Senator Mikulski's state director. I worked for Governor Schaefer as the director of one of his offices. I represented the state in terms of marketing and communications and economic development for 5.5 years. I have been here many times. I have been on that Indian Trail. I'm a big biker on the rail trail. But I kept thinking as I was driving down here, this is truly one of Maryland's best-kept secrets. And that is a positive. It's the bane and it's the blessing. It's how to keep what makes it special, the blessing, and yet share and get more people down here, because it is magnificent. So that's my editorializing for the day, and I'm not just saying that because it's you. I really do think this is one of the most special places in Maryland. All right, let's start with snapshots. I'm going to start with Marcia and ask her to draw a picture for us so that we're all on the same page. Population, demographics, who we are, what we are, where we are.
Exactly, and I'm not going to go through and read this to you, but in your handout that's there in front of you, you have some maps, you have some data, and we will make this available. There's a lot of interesting information, and I'm going to stand just so that I can hold this up and point to a little bit, but also stay somewhat close to the microphone. Sorry about that. And by the way, thank you very much to the county's media team for being here to tape this and keep track of everything that was said today. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about the demographics, because we'll talk some about the 210 corridor. And so I wanted to make it very clear what we are referring to when we're talking about the 210 corridor. And this first map kind of tells the story. What I did here was I went and identified all of the census tracts that are along 210, all the way from the town of Indian Head up to the Washington Capitol Beltway. And this tells us a little bit about the population. And then on the next pages, where you see these tables here, the blue is Charles County numbers. The green is the actual 210 corridor, and that is all of this piece here, all of these various census tracts. And then the green is the Charles County portion, and the orange is the entire 210 corridor, including Charles County and Prince George's County. Sort of tells you what some of the population is. You can see that, the total Charles County population is 145,000, but only 15,000 people live in this western part of the county, 76,000 throughout the entire corridor. And the reason we wanted to include that is because, as people have said, economies don't know county lines, and commerce doesn't know county lines, and this corridor is a wonderful asset, because as Western Charles County becomes a destination that some of you have talked about today, they're going to be using that 210 corridor. And there are a lot of resources that are on the other side of the county line that we can draw on, and we can be a resource as well. Our airport, and forgive me, Gil, for us taking ownership of your airport, but the airport here in Charles County is a resource for the folks in Prince George's County. So hopefully there's some overlap, and years to come we can work together with everybody up and down that corridor, which is why we wanted to paint a picture. Again, just some more data here about the demographics of the county, the corridor, and Western Charles County. And one of the things as I was putting this together that I think is very, very noteworthy is in a lot of ways the demographics of the entire corridor are very similar to Charles County in general. When you look at the number of people, of adults, of working adults 25 years and older with a college degree or higher, the numbers are very similar in the corridor as well as in Charles County. And on the subsequent pages, the kinds of workforce that we have, the numbers of people who are private workers versus government workers, or the kinds of occupations they have. Again, in the corridor and in Charles County, they tend to reflect each other a lot with the numbers of people who are in management. And then I also, at the end, and this is for us to reference as we are having our discussions today, that included business patterns. And this data is from the U.S. Census, from the American Community Survey. And the business patterns, the numbers of businesses in Charles County, the numbers of businesses the kinds of businesses that we have in Charles County. Unfortunately, the data in the economic census are available a little differently. So in the economic census, whereas in the regular ACS, it's available I could get it by census tract. In the economic census, it's available by zip code. So the two zip codes that I pulled for the western part of Charles County are the Bryans Road and the Indian Head zip code, but you can see that they are there as well in the subsequent pages, that you can see the numbers of businesses and the kinds of businesses and the numbers of employees that those businesses have. So as we are talking throughout the day, we have that available to us. So I've gotten the 1 minute sign and I'm going to stop there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Kwasi Holman, I see our Director of Planning and Growth Management, Peter Aludo, here, and I wanted to put him and his staff on the spot and just have them give a 30-second overview about land uses, especially since someone referenced state assistance. Priority funding areas are very important for that, and if someone could just show us on that little map up there where the priority funding areas are, it would help orient us, I think.
I'm Amy Blessinger, I'm Planner 3 in Charles County Government. The priority funding areas, a lot of this area is included in the priority funding area. That is a state designated area. We have several throughout the county that were priorities for, can you hear? That are priorities for channeling of state funding for transportation infrastructure, those sorts of projects. And the town of Indian Head is one of the priority funding areas as a municipality. I guess it's on there. If I go off the map here, there it is. The Bryans Road Town Center area is a priority funding area around this area here. The exact boundaries I'm not sure, but I believe it pretty much encompasses the commercial and residential zoning. And the Indian Head Tech Park is also in a priority funding area as well, right here.
Super helpful.
The Indian Tech Park, is that still on the map?
Yes.
I mean, I don't mean your map, is it still viable?
Someone else would need to address that. I'm not familiar.
We'll have to get to that during our time. So, Marcia, just to wrap up then, you pointed out that you found, from your findings, the trends that the western portion of the Charles County also mirrored the 210 corridor, which mirrored the county. Any other takeaways? Because this is great data, but anything you distilled and said, here's what I want people to understand about this core demographic data in terms of occupations, in terms of employment base, anything else that you want us to know?
Not that I can think of. Just Charles County in general, we're getting more and more professionals, middle class professionals that are coming to the county, and I think that that's a wonderful opportunity for business attraction as well as visitor attraction.
You don't want to be the best kept secret anymore. All right, so we're going to move on to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Amy.
With all due respect, I did see that same takeaway from the data very quickly here.
Okay.
So tell me what I'm missing. That's what I'd like to know. When I look at the data, 210 Charles County corridor, which is the intent of this room, I see only 10% of the people living in that corridor out of the county. Mm-hmm. I see only 10% working in the county in this corridor. It's very skewed. And I see from the educational, only a third of this county having high school degrees and another quarter having not finished a college degree. And so I did not see that, and I'm trying to understand why people make the choices they do and what that means to this room. So that's the intent. So when you say it mirrors it, I'm seeing it skewed a different way, which is it's very not balanced. It's very, only 10% of this county comes to this area for a particular reason. Why?
Well,
they're not
only,
living here, they're
right.
not working
And you're
here,
right,
they
only
don't have the
10%
educational,
of
the rest of the county. Why?
No, I'm talking about the entire 210 corridor, not
Oh,
just
I was
West,
just looking
not
at
just
the
the Charles
subsection
County part.
here. I'm
That's,
sorry.
no,
Okay.
the point that I was making is throughout the entire corridor, that 76,000 that live up and down 210 more closely mirror the population of Charles County in general. And those are some of the people that we will be attracting here, both as workers and as visitors.
So you're on the green color and I'm on the red color, and that's the difference, correct? Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
It was an important.
Thank you for asking.
Important nuance. All right, so the next snapshot we want to hear about is business in Western Charles County today, and we're going to ask Vince Hungerford to give us a 5-minute snapshot. What is it we need to know about business in the county today, in the western part of the county?
Brevity is not necessarily my tall suit. But anyhow, today, I think we're talking about the economy of the county, the region, and the country, really. So it's like they said in the election, it's the economy, stupid, or something to that effect. So, as we know, consumer spending is about 73% of the GDP. That means jobs, because you're not going to spend money if you don't have jobs. But anyway, to get on with this, Marcia said to talk about things that were important to me and to Western Charles. So I'm going to cover a few, and I'm going to point them out here real quickly. BRAC, the airport, the tech park, the Cross County Connector, the Bryan's Road Sub-Area Plan, education in general, growth and preservation, and the synergy of all this we have working for us here in the Western Charles. First, we'll take BRAC. BRAC is going to happen. We don't know when, but like Dennis said, who heads up the alliance, sometimes it's better to have the BRAC than not have the BRAC, because they'll eat away at you if you don't have the BRAC. Right now, on the pier and at Stump Neck, we have about 1,800 civilian employees. 52% of those live here in Charles County. 68 or 70% live in Maryland. So the rest come from probably close by. But anyhow, we have 800 science and engineers here. And this is a talent that's seen nowhere else in the world. We have people at different locations throughout the country. We have in Oklahoma, New Jersey, Utah, and Kentucky. But the largest contingency is here at the base. It's about 1,500 folks. So anyhow, when we talk about BRAC, and they evaluate on our military value, we are evaluated against other folks in the business. One is Picatinny, New Jersey. One is China Lake, as we all know. One is Eglin Air Force Base down in Florida. And so all of us are being evaluated on the same criteria. So it's important that we do what we can to support this base. We need to fund it. We need to fund the contractual support. The community needs to get together and present an image that is supportive of the base. And we all need to get together to collaborate to make this thing happen. Okay. Next is the airport. The airport, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is the future economic engine in Western Charles. And Gil was supposed to call me up this morning and tell me he was going to take off so I could be with him. But he didn't need a co-pilot, I guess. So anyhow, but when you take a look at the airport, we need to have infrastructure there. We need to have it there now. So I think the county is working on that, but we need to have some urgency. People talk about the airport and say, it's not what the county needs sometimes because it's noisy. Well, if you want to follow 3 or 4 motorcycles up the road, you can get a hell of a lot more noise than you get from an airplane. Wow. I warned you, but okay. Okay, Tech Park, let me tell you, the county has acreage next to the airport. I think it's something that we can count on being there, and when the things happen at the airport, they will follow to the Tech Park. Cross County Connector. The county has gone a long way to buying what they need, the property and all that. I think that's a must. We need an easy and safe way to go from here over to Waldorf. And it's right now, it's a safety hazard. I traveled it a couple times this week. It was crazy. Sub-area plan to Bryan's Road. We worked hours on that to put that in place, and I think they've sort of thrown it under the bus. I think maybe we need to tweak that and see if we can work with it. education. We need a trained workforce if we're going to get jobs here, and so we need to follow up in the school system and have a lot of technology, a lot of STEM, S-T-E-M, okay?
Time.
Thank you. Wait a minute. One thing, I must say this. You know, with all we have here, the naval facility, the airport, the tech park, the connector, education system, which is great, our proximity to Washington, National Harbor, a possible water taxi, we have something that most of the rest of the country would love to have. Thank you.
Great points, and I'm sure we're going to hear more and add more suggestions to them when we get into the SWAC. So you've put them in our brain, we'll put them on paper, we got it. Last quarter snapshot is, of course, the beautiful town of Indian Head. Mayor Chesley.
Thank you. I'd like to drill down a little bit briefly into some of the demographics that Marcia provided, oriented or relating to the town of Indian Head specifically, to our incorporated boundaries, not the whole 2064 zip code, but our boundaries. The town of Indian Head is about a 2 mile long, 1 mile wide, 1 mile to 1.5 miles wide strip of a peninsula between the Mattawoman Creek on that side and the Potomac River on this side. It's a beautiful area. And as somebody else said, we've sort of exploited or developed our Mattawoman Creek waterline a little bit. We have access to that. We have not developed our Potomac River access, although we're working on that. We have about 1,400 homes in the town of Indian Head, approximately 60 businesses. We have zoned land for probably another 60 or 100 businesses that is undeveloped, as well as many of you saw the boarded up properties, the plywood scabs on the buildings coming into town. That probably represents another 10 or 15 businesses that or locations where businesses could be reinstated or reinserted. Briefly, some of our assets, I think, are our recreational assets. The Mattawoman Creek, we have canoeing and kayaking facilities there. We have a park on the Mattingly Creek, or on Mattawoman Creek. It's Mattingly Park, with fishing opportunities there on decks looking out over the creek, as well as the boat launch facility to get boats out there. The canoe and kayaking rents canoes and kayaks for recreational activities. It also rents small powered skiffs for the people that don't own a boat can come and rent a small boat to go out on the creek and go fishing or just touring the Mattawoman Creek. We also have a lot of heritage areas in the area. General Smallwood Retreat, Mallows Bay, Thomas Stone National Historic Site. We'd like to make Indian Head the gateway to Charles County's recreational, Indian Head's recreational and heritage venues on this side of the county. Some other assets that we have is we're working on the water taxi. That feasibility study, impact study should be complete here within a month or two, and then we'll see what the next step is. As well, the town of Indian Head has a tax incentive program, as does Charles County, that will waive real estate taxes on the improvement on the improved value of business properties in the town of Indian Head. It's a declining thing, goes over 5 years. A couple of years ago, our EDC committee, Economic Development Commission, conducted their own strategic planning session and identified what the sources of our market demand would be, what the needs or desires of our residents would be, and then developed an approach to start working on that. Some of the sources for our in-town market demand was residents, visitors, the base workforce, and the base tenants as a draw for business opportunities. The desired businesses of the residents are obviously a grocery store. First and foremost, that's what everybody talks about, as well as other goods and services to meet the people's daily living needs. In order to start attracting more business activity, the EDC conducted a session and determined that we ought to try and exploit the Indian Head Rail Trail and our recreational opportunities here in the town of Indian Head on the Mattawoman Creek presently, hopefully in the not too distant future on the Potomac River. So in that respect, we are going to start this month a connector trail between the Village Green here and the Indian Head Rail Trail to get families with small children and less experienced bikers over to the rail trail on a comfortable, easy access rather than have to drive down Mattingly Avenue and compete with traffic. As well as a Indian Head Rail Trail Plaza here on the green to attract people to the green and then learn about the rest of the town.
Perfect. Well, as I said, I've been one of your bikers and your visitors and it takes work if you don't know it's here. And I think, again, there's a lot of lessons learned and some insight that I can share with you offline when we're done. But I applaud you for doing that because it was magical. As I tell people, you want to see the pictures of all the terrapins I took pictures of when I was on my trail ride? Best. And I live in Dorchester County, which, thinks it's like the best for bikers. But those are serious bikers, like road bikers. I prefer trails. So I'm with you. All right, we've heard from 3 people and then some others. I wanted to just stop and give everybody a chance to clarify, as Amy did, if there's any questions that you have about what you've heard. Anybody have any questions that they just want clarification, additional information before we move on?
I'd like to put this on my forehead for Mr. Chesley, because Mayor Chesley, because he didn't mention the arts, which is the going theater.
We cut him off, we're sorry.
Strategy, Peggy, and could you do that? Thank you.
I have one question for clarification then. What is the status of the strategic plan that you're referring to?
We're in the process of implementing the decisions to exploit the Indian Head Rail Trail with the connector trail and the Trailhead Plaza here on the green to attract people to park here on the green. The plaza will have a kiosk to tell them more about the trail, but also to tell them about the businesses in town and the local heritage venues on this side of the county.
I just wanted to clarify because you said a couple of years ago we developed. So that we developed, you approved, and you're implementing. So wonderful.
This month is the first phase, and then in a few more months.
Oh, it just started. You just launched the implementation. Okay, Peggy.
I would like to give a nod to Arts Vision 2020, which was a very well thought out strategic plan for the arts in the entire county. And we are fast approaching 2020 now. One of the things they mentioned in Charles County, exploiting the water, again, was a wolf trap on the Potomac type of venue that would be a real anchor for bringing people in. And I do want to mention that the Washington Post just changed hands. I don't know how many of you know, it has a new owner now. And they have surplus property of 20-plus acres on the water, and now would be an excellent time to reapproach them. This is not land they need, and it is an opportunity.
Okay, you're going into our SWAC now.
Okay.
All right, so I want you to hold that thought, because we're going to put that in. So questions, clarifications, we're good? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just, it occurs to me, I look out in the audience and I see some representatives of Melwood present. And it occurs to me that when we talk about Western Charles County today, it appears we're really talking about a portion of Western Charles County. And I want to clarify that because there's a whole other portion of Western Charles County that exists that has access like Friendship Landing, which is a county landing, Melwood, the Lions Club. There's a whole other portion of Western Charles County that we're not talking about. So I think that needs to be noted.
You've been watching part 1 of the Western Charles County Roundtable. To continue watching this event, check Charles County Government's digital library or YouTube page. You can also catch this and many other informative meetings by tuning into CCG TV. Thanks for watching.
Basically, a SWOT or a SWOT analysis is just a chance to look by category at some strengths, weaknesses, challenges, and opportunities. And again, when Peggy started to talk about one of those opportunities, that's exactly where we want to go with our SWOT analysis. Again, in the interest of time, and with my apologies, and slow me down if I start to talk too fast, because, as I mentioned, I am half Italian and I talk really fast. We are going to move along. So we're going to put the timer on, wrap it up, and remember, we've got breakout sessions, we've got papers you can fill out, Post-its you can put down. No idea or stone will be left unturned. We just may not dive deep in it today. We want to hit the surface, okay? So we're going to look at two things today in terms of our strengths and, well, actually we're going to look at a lot of things, but we're going to break it into strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and challenges. And for the first part, what we'd like to do is talk about strengths and weaknesses in 7 areas, and that's a lot. So we're going to time each and just try and move through them. We want to talk about the labor force, customers and business base, transportation. I've heard a lot today. Again, it's a chance to put it down because it fulfills the visions. Site availability. The mayor just mentioned zoning for another 60 to 100 businesses. That's site availability potentially. The business climate. We want to be known as a place that's friendly, right, for business. Utilities, both, traditional water, sewer, power, gas, and those, of course, that have become so germane to everyday life and business, broadband. And then quality of life, arts, culture, recreation, the environment, so much of what you're working on, as well as the shopping, the services, the education, cost of living. So what I'd like to do is just start in order, and I think, does your agenda show you what that order is? Okay, sorry, I've got the more detailed agenda. So let's start with labor force, and let's give ourselves 4 minutes on each topic, and then we can come back to anything. Again, let's start with strengths, and then let's talk about weaknesses. So the first thing I'd like to ask of our panelists here, what are the strengths in terms of the labor force in this area of Western Charles County?
I believe they're well-educated.
Okay.
Overall.
Peggy, what'd you say?
Well-educated.
I believe they're well-educated overall. I mean, that's the majority, anyway.
Corridor, county, metro area. Certainly in the metro area, I would agree. Most of us would.
Well, I think some things we heard from Vince is well-educated, but they're also highly skilled.
Like in areas of energetics.
They're government employees that are on the base. They come into town and they go out of town.
But in terms of the strengths of the labor force.
Yeah, there are a high number of PhDs with specific skills who, as they reach retirement age, could start their own companies and generate jobs for area residents.
So we keep hearing about those highly specialized PhDs, subject matter experts, something very unique to this area.
Point of clarification,
Yes.
please, sorry, I'm the rural one.
No.
Are we talking about the people as they live here or the people as they're working here? Because those are not the same, and I'm a little confused.
We're actually talking about 3 things.
Yes.
Both here in this particular corridor.
Correct.
In the county, because that's also a deep base to draw on.
Okay.
And then in the greater metropolitan area, because again, we have to think about the needs of the area, but remembering what Marcia and the commissioner both said, a lot of this is borderless. People don't think about those county demarcation, administrative, and budget lines. They think about, hey, I'm going to Southern Maryland. So labor force, go ahead.
I believe that they're motivated, and to a degree that motivation is motivated to be able to work here instead of joining the gang every morning that we possibly all see. And I'm not sure if that's a strength. I think it's a strength to look at when establishing businesses here, that you've got people who'd like to be able to work here?
Workforce, labor, strengths.
Looking at the demographics, the median age is 37, so I'd say the workforce is relatively young, which is good.
All right, we've got a minute on this. We can stay here, or we can move on and save some of our thoughts for, all right, let's move on. Access to customers. Strengths in terms of access to customers, like that 210 corridor that Marcia was talking about.
Bus. I mean, you don't have a lot of Metro bus in and out of in many parts of the county, even though it's very limited to basically, I guess, rush hours. It's got the potential to be expanded.
So the strength is that there is access to a bus already here, okay?
Who's the customer?
Thank you.
Ask the question.
Who's the
Depends on
customer?
the kind of business. You know, the customer might, if you're a business-to-business kind of provider, then you've got one customer, which is something to consider as well when you're thinking about access to customers. If you're a government contractor, your customer is the government. If you are a target, your customer is the public. So it just depends on the kind of business.
I don't know if reverse commute is the right term here, but, you know, you're not in a heavy traffic area coming south on 210.
I experienced that this morning. I agree with you.
I don't know if we call it a reverse commute, but the traffic flow south on 210 is much less than going north.
That is a strength. It's also an opportunity, and one that probably should be probed a little bit.
We exploit it all the time, trying to hire down there.
I enjoyed it today
Oh,
after
yeah.
being on the Beltway.
Actually, the public transportation is a weakness on Western Charles. For instance, I get phone calls all the time for people wanting to come into the airport to get to National Harbor or get into town, and there is no transportation to that point, you know, that they can do that. They'll either have to do a taxi or a limo, that kind of thing.
Weakness limited through traffic on the western side of the county. We don't get a lot of through traffic.
No, because you're at the end of the.
We're at the beginning.
Spoken like a true marketing man.
We're wired, fiber.
Oh, I thought you meant we'd had too much coffee.
Yeah, we're totally wired. You'd have gas.
It's coming.
But gas is coming down the road.
Was that access to customers?
That's a weakness.
We'll save that
Well,
for
save that.
Save that for utilities, right?
That's right. That might even be an opportunity.
Let's get back to labor force. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Without pointing out the obvious, since Gil just spoke, we have an airport.
Maryland only has 36 public use airports, so that's down from over 100 just a few decades ago.
Just in terms of access to customers, you shouldn't forget that the Walter Ferry is a significant population center, and there really isn't safe and adequate east-west intra-county surface transportation at the moment. And so, you know, that could be a deterrent to someone who might want to go to a great restaurant in Indian Head, but don't want to travel on Billingsley Road late at night.
Just going back, Marcia, because I noticed that you've got both strengths and weaknesses going, and we gave a little bit of short shrift on labor force, so maybe we should point out now what some of the weaknesses are in the labor force. And again, to anyone who's sitting here from the public or who's at the table, if you've got some thoughts that you don't, please use those sheets and make sure you get them down. But let's get down a few that just might be top of mind so that when the breakouts start, we can pursue them. Weaknesses on the labor force?
Yeah, they're too young.
Okay.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. When you look at a strength, sometimes it is a weakness also.
Absolutely.
You know, because if we're losing all of our seniors, where's this going? And seniors are moving out.
So brain drain experience. Okay?
Well, taking, sort of using Steve's point as a point of departure on the median age, at 37 years, that is among the largest demographic in Charles County right now. It's the 20 to 44-year-old age group. And so I think a weakness is, are we providing that demographic with a place to live and raise their children in this area. Is everything here they need that would make Western Charles an attractive place to move and set up their family.
So a weakness is potentially we don't have the right services in the pipeline for that middle family raising group.
Recreational opportunities, ball fields, schools, restaurants.
That's huge. I mean, that age demographic really likes the more city hub or whatever you want to call, and how do you attract in that age group from other parts of the county when they all want to move to Washington or Alexandria or Georgetown or something like that when they become successful at that age?
Work ethic, the younger group seems to have a different work ethic than the older group of workers.
Okay.
They look at the jobs differently.
You had something, Evie?
Yes, two things. The labor force, if you look, 17% of the 210 corridor in Charles County have degrees. I think there's a variant between the more educated and those, let's just say, less educated from a technical standpoint.
So not enough in the middle? Okay, so maybe really good, highly technically skilled, what the senator used to call when we would come down here, the brainiacs. And then perhaps at the lower end of the skill set, we don't have quite the middling.
And the same thing for the access to customers. I think a negative is, the fact is, I think we do have enough population on the 210 corridor to bring people down. What you don't have on the weaknesses is the ability to market to it. They don't individually have the expertise, I would say, in marketing to bring it down, including the town needs to market more in that area, and so it's a municipality as well as individuals.
For marketing, okay. I'm giving myself my own time frame here. We've got to move on to transportation.
Though, I'm going to suggest, unless somebody else has on transportation, we've covered so much under access to customers, we covered enough, I think, about transportation, that maybe in the interest of time, unless somebody else has something. I don't want to.
Potential ferry.
Oh, okay, well then maybe we should.
Let's do a separate transportation, and we'll just get those key things down, because you've said it. An inter-county connector, la, 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 having the ICC vision as you all were talking. So strengths and weaknesses, transportation, we'll just start and we'll catch Marcia up. Put the inter-county connector down there as a need, so that's a weakness. So the ability to move inter-county. We've got the limited, that Quasi pointed out, bus. You said ferry, who said ferry?
Potential ferry.
Potential ferry.
Is that a strength or a weakness?
That's an opportunity.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. We'll put it here, but I think we should remember it for opportunity.
And also the airport.
That's a strength.
Strength and opportunity.
That's a strength, right, Gil?
Definitely.
Wasn't right.
Too car dependent.
We're not walkable.
I think another strength for transportation is the good highways we have coming into town. Now, going up the road to DC, the traffic might be a problem, but coming in, it's not generally a problem.
Water, I heard a lot of talk about it's not as accessible as or visible as we'd like it to be, so is that a weakness here? Our access to water in terms of transportation, moving people, product, cargo?
It's an opportunity as well.
With everything, right?
With the Robinson Terminal.
Water access is a weakness, Marcia.
How about rail?
On that line, though, that's a weakness and a challenge is that you're dealing with multiple jurisdictions. So to be able to build something between here and Washington, D.C., you're dealing with many different entities to try and get that done. So that's either a weakness or a challenge.
You're responding directly to rail?
If you want to.
No, I'm just asking as a question, what about rail? I'm asking you. Is there rail here now? How is there rail? Is it just moving commerce? It's not moving people, right?
No, the rail trail was the rail. There
Right,
is no
exactly.
rail to Western Charles County.
Okay.
The light rail corridor planned and proposed is for the Waldorf area. There isn't anything like that proposed for the western side at the moment.
Right.
And you got the strength, right, the 210 corridor coming in. I really thought that was a strength.
Yes.
All right, so that gets down, I think, the bulk of what we've got, right? And we're going to get into some of these more when we talk about opportunities as well.
I think there is one more weakness we need to put on transportation, not a through. There's this, it ends. It's a peninsula. It's like an island. So there's no way, if you come in one way and out the same way, if it were through, it would be stronger.
It's an out and back, as we like to say in biking.
Outback.
Outback. Okay, site availability, both land that's zoned for development, properties that are available for redevelopment. I mean, I know we could probably spend the whole day here. But we've got some strengths and some obvious weaknesses, but let's focus on strengths first, in terms of site availability.
A strength in the town of Indian Head is the zoning being mixed use.
Good one. And also the redevelopment tax credit. That's a huge one. That's what the whole A&E program was built on. I would add you're in a priority funding area. That's a huge strength.
And for Bryan's Road, you do have the Bryan's Road sub-area plan, which is a land use plan that's in place.
Right. That has or has not been started. Is that a weakness?
It has been, no, it's been started, it's been zoned.
Okay. So there's guideposts and strategic plans in place.
Tech
Yeah,
Park,
the tech park.
Indian Head Tech Park.
I don't know. We meant that as a strength, right?
Right.
A weakness is a perception of blight.
Perception of blight. You're talking about the front door, the welcome mat as you're rolling down
The
210.
boarded up buildings.
Yeah.
Perception of blight.
But it's not a
Who
perception,
wants
it's
to be?
real. It's boarded up.
Well, yes, I perceive it
The whole
as
town.
blight. And it's like who wants to be first person on the dance floor?
Disconnect between Bryan's Road to the continuity and ability to develop with the lands that have been put in preservation. So in some ways that's good, but in some ways it deters a sense of development that we are talking about we'd like to have.
Okay.
I guess I mean, I don't know if it's a weakness because I just have a question. With regard to Indian Head, I mean, the mixed-use zoning is in place, which fosters revitalization in concert with smart growth principles. And the town has had the wisdom of placing this redevelopment tax credit in too, which you think both of those would be great incentives, but yet it's not working. I guess the weakness is why. Maybe we need to identify why it's not working, or what weaknesses exist within that, or what policies don't exist. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe what other policies don't exist that are creating a weakness for these very bold visions for the redevelopment of the town of Indian Head.
Are those the mixed use? Oh, God, thank you. Right, you know, that's a point of question and clarification I'll ask later. Go ahead.
So, okay, and I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. And this is a strength and a weakness, depending. We have a lot of available buildings and land. The weakness is property owners. How do you get them motivated? Don't know why they're not getting off of property, or is it because people aren't interested, and why aren't they interested in that property? So
I think some of the lack of interest in those properties are due to the property owners. Some of them aren't maintaining those available buildings. And at the same time, they're asking top dollar sales or rental rates instead of current market level rates.
Evie, and then we're going to wrap up after.
Speaking of markets, marketing, being able for the town to market in some way their types of products that they have. It's really a responsibility in some ways of the town.
So a weakness is you don't have a coordinated marketing
That's a
effort to represent
coordinated
all of the
marketing
business
effort.
properties,
Indeed.
which is a very successful tool in many areas. Okay, last thought, and then we're going to go on to the next one.
I believe that a weakness is the frank uncertainty of the future of the base.
I think that's very true. And I think I'm going to speak now as a property owner, which I'm not, but in terms of the Eli real estate. We were governed totally by defense contractors to the base. And in doing so, that being part of our market, we also were governed by the leases that we could have. Our leases ran literally from year to year. Whether it was a 10-year contract or it didn't matter. And within those leases, we were required to have a stipulation that said, if the contract dropped below a certain amount, they could call the lease null and void. If
So in other words, you're saying it's the nature of leasing?
it's the nature of the
to
beast
government
down here.
contractors
It's the nature of
as
the
part what
beast
makes
here.
it
You're very limited. Very limited.
Okay.
We're going to end site development on there because, as you can see, we are over. We're going to give short shrift to business climate. We're going to give it 2 minutes. Business climate gets 2 minutes. And while Marcia's writing, I'll scribe whatever is said. So business climate strengths. I'm going to offer one up that I've seen, a very engaged, enlightened, and educated group of people that are involved with the business community here. It's very obvious to me. I mean, listening to some of the reports that you've made, you don't get that in every community, and I'm not pointing fingers at other communities. I'm saying this is unprecedented. So I would put that as a strength and applaud you for it.
I'm sorry, say that again, Andrea.
Very involved, engaged, informed, however you'd like to say it, knowledgeable business community in terms of what they need to make it work. Able to articulate strategies. Weaknesses?
I think another strength is the college for that, because that helps with our business climate in helping incubate, new business owners.
Business climate strengths, yes, dear?
Under a weakness, we all need to create the best possible image. I think we've discussed a bit, but creating an image for this region is very important.
So
Both
it doesn't
graphic-
have an identity.
No, it doesn't. So graphically, marketing-wise.
Weaknesses, lack of identity. Amy?
Well, I was going to say a positive one.
Please do.
You're guaranteed 1,800 plus people driving in and out of your door every day.
Nice.
If you
Ready-made
can-
audience,
And while
customer base.
the makeup may change over the years, there are going to be about 1,800 people working on that base all the time unless that base goes down, and that would be very unlikely. So you just have to figure out what they want to buy. And they're fairly well-paid workforce in South I'll say that.
Okay.
That's not the only demographic.
I'm going to end with your last suggestion here.
Just kind of building on Vince's point, because he talked, I think, about the tech park and the cross-county connector. There has to be broad-based, long-term institutional support for the growth policies that are not just going to help Indian Head, but the entire western side thrive. Because you're going to be asking investors, businesses to come in who are making very long-term, 10 years and longer decisions, on financing, on planning and permitting projects, that are going to benefit the county on the long-term side, and particularly the western side on the long term. They're going to want to understand when they make that long-term commitment that there's that institutional support for the policies that are going to support that development and allow it to happen.
So institutional support?
Institutional support for a long-term vision for the western side. For a weakness, and not to offend Amy, but local government contracting policies.
Yeah, it's out of.
All you have to do is go look at Dahlgren or at Pax River, and you can see the difference it makes when you have a strong industrial base outside your gate.
Yes.
Very true.
We're going to move on to utilities. Make a note of that, please, and we'll get it down. And talk a little bit about the strengths of the utilities. I heard someone mention gas. Is that natural
We
gas
have a
that's
new
coming?
natural gas line coming in.
So I would assume that's a strength.
Broadband is a strength.
It's huge.
Totally wired, Southern Railroad.
Gas stations.
Weakness.
I get lots of complaints from people they can't fill up after they leave, you know. It's simple things like that, you know. Wash your car.
I think we have a rather reliable electric utility in this area.
Changes made after the tornado, things you mean that strengthen the infrastructure, or when you say you have a reliable?
For some reason, and that's, I think, our electric provider, whenever there's like a huge storm in the region, while Pepco and BGE are still trying to get customers
That's what I'm
online, SMECO has everybody back up and running. We have a
Nice.
wonderful.
That's actually a
wonderful co-op.
huge asset.
It is.
Vince?
A little south of us, we need public sewage and water.
Yeah.
You need it, or you think it's a weakness because you don't have it?
I think it's a weakness.
There was somebody else was going to say.
We have begun our infrastructure for electric vehicle charging stations as well.
Oh, nice. Definite strength. Electric vehicle charging station. You know, Gil, soon there's going to be electric planes, so you're going to need charging stations at the airport. I'm hopeful that that will happen. But you bring up a great point. So anything with regards to, when we talk about utilities, energy efficiency, greening, solar farm, I mean, anything in that realm that's a strength, weakness, desire, opportunity, need?
We do have a solar farm also.
You do have a solar farm?
But not in this part of the county.
Oh. Okay, I just throw it out because I know a lot of the rural counties have been moving towards that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're the best timekeeper ever, ever. It's what being a town manager is all about, right? Okay, let's talk about quality of life because, my lord, there are strengths there. So let's put the good stuff down and at least celebrate it and recognize it. Quality of life strengths. Just shout them out. We're going to put them down, and we'll prioritize what we need to address in terms of weaknesses.
Recreational opportunities,
Specifically?
well, specifically water, trails, baseball, football,
Fishing, boating,
soccer.
biking, team sports, sure.
Arts venue.
The black box.
Yes, a theater, so an arts venue. It's more than a theater. You want a weakness? It's not promoted by the community.
We have a plus and a minus. Our proximity to DC.
That's quality of life. Yep. I mean, a lot of things go into quality of life, right? Education, housing costs. Haven't heard anything about housing costs here today. It's usually such a dominant topic.
And vis-a-vis the rest of the metropolitan area, we still are very affordable.
So it's a strength.
The weakness is it's too one-sided in a certain area in the town, for example.
What was that?
It's one-sided?
It's one-dimensional. Too many townhomes, not enough opportunities for other kinds of housing.
The weakness is no grocery store.
Huge.
I believe there's a weakness, a perception of crime problems, I'll say it, safety and crime problems down in this area, and a perception of less than desired school systems when they can compare to other regions in DC to live in, and this is addressing the demographics of the young families.
Yep.
Okay.
On that, I would say that's a perception issue because, of course, General Smallwood and Lackey have some of the most progressive STEM programs in the county and
That's
have
strength.
huge successes, right? But it's a perception,
Right.
right? No, I agree with you.
When they're making choices between
Yes.
Montgomery,
Nope.
Fairfax, or here.
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, I just want to get it out there.
Okay, last thought, because we're going to move on. And then remember, you can always jot down your notes and we'll get back to them. You had one last thought? down in the corner.
No access, or little access to our natural features.
Weakness. I just have to say, as a resident of Dorchester County, I feel like I'm having a bit of a deja vu because we did something similar not too long ago. There's a lot of parallels going on here, but we have no broadband.
We have no broadband in the rural areas. We only have broadband in this core.
Okay, got it. All right.
I disagree. It goes all the way to Nanjemoy, Mount Hope Nanjemoy, and it was being lit the end of September, supposedly.
It doesn't come to mind.
That's the last mile provider.
The last mile, I love it. That's where I am, the last mile. Okay, we're going to talk now about opportunities and challenges, and I think one of the things that I've heard, and in my humble opinion, I would say, that most of the people in this room have looked at everything that is a weakness as an opportunity, or a challenge as an opportunity. And I think, again, keeping it within that positive vernacular, not just because it makes everybody more kumbaya, that's not the reason for it. It puts it into the vernacular that can translate into action items that can go into the kind of prioritization and planning that you all can use to determine what to tackle. So we have down here, we have four categories, and we're going to give each one 4 minutes? We're going to give each one 4 minutes. I'm going to start to shave time. The first one, and we've talked a lot about this. So when you think about an opportunity or a challenge, state it as an opportunity or as a suggestion for, and think about things that we can do here locally. If it's not a decision that can't be affected with as much local focus or locus, we'll put it in the hopper. So first is the Indian Head base, contracting opportunities, BRAC, technology, et cetera. The second is the whole 210 corridor north of the county. Think about the whole cluster, the competition, the cooperation, co-opetition, a lot of people call it now. The third category we're going to talk about for opportunities and challenges is recreation, regulation, and the environment. So we'll put those three out there. And then the last is just basically your economic and community development 101. So let's start with the first three, because I think those are the ones that rose as most prominent. Indian Head. What do we hear here? Challenges and opportunities. So the big opportunity, what I called ET2. Energetics, entrepreneurialism, and tech transfer seem to be things that keep coming up, whether it's a National Center of Excellence, the retiring brainiacs, I don't mean that in a pejorative way, the retiring people who are coming out, who are still young retirees, who want to start that entrepreneurial effort with that in. So those would be two opportunities. Can we weigh in a little bit on those or some specific things?
I think the opportunity for support contractors outside the base is huge and untapped.
And give me an example of that, like a suggestion, like
we have a lot of available, storefront availability, property availability for contractors to come in and support the base and be nearby. And I'm sure the people on the base would much prefer to have somebody right outside than have to drive an hour up the road.
Can I'm going to make a comment to you on that, because that would be wonderful. But our contractors, we actually lost to the base. They moved them onto the base because the government is cutting budgets, and in effect, if they don't have to pay rent on base, then their contract is lowered by that amount. So that
does happen, but there's still a great deal of opportunity. And our business is proof of that. So.
It would be a comment that the needs of the base are constantly changing, both what we're permitted to do, how we got to go about doing it, and the services that we need, and that's constantly changing. The government is moving away right now not all services, but moving away, where we used to be dominated by service contracts, now it's more purchasing type of contracts. And there's opportunity in both, but we have to talk about the future, where we think the business is going, and that changes tenancies and services. So they're always buying. They buy a tremendous amount. How much can locally come would be a refreshing question.
Okay.
I think you could say that the changing climate for the base and for the contractors in general is a real challenge, with sequestration, DOD downsizing, budget constraints. It's not a fun time, and it probably won't be, but it's changing. So the opportunity there is to be flexible and responsive to the changes like Amy was saying.
Correct. All right, how about the 210 corridor north of Charles County? Opportunities and challenges that posits for
Sorry,
economic
I
development?
wanted to leave the base one though, because, and again, it's not, how do you meet that market? There are people coming and going every day that are working, they're not at home, they're not doing their services, they're not doing their dry cleaning, they're not doing, and they're just ripe for help in living their life while they're working, and that's not happening on their commute to work or their transit. So I just want to say, when you attach to the base, there are supports that they are looking for: food, gas, dry cleaning, I don't know, whatever, that they're not able to reach out and get in where.
Serving the
in a
needs
work.
of the.
Yeah, so I think that's an opportunity or a challenge, put it in whatever category you'd like.
The challenge is they don't exist. The opportunity is they'd be a ready market for it.
Put it however you
But they
want to.
did exist. and
The
they
challenge
were
is they don't
And
work
that's
here.
why we lost the grocery store. We had a dry
Why?
cleaners. There used to be an ice rink in Indian Head,
Their needs change.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where those 1,800 people eat lunch, because I don't see any place here to eat lunch. I mean, where do they go?
We're getting food trucks someday.
Yeah, I mean, why aren't there restaurants here in Indian Head to serve those people?
There are.
3.
There are?
And they're totally supported, almost totally supported by base personnel. When there's a sequester or a Friday off, business drops way down in the local.
So in some ways, it's the locals aren't using the local restaurants, the people who do live here.
Not in the evenings, right?
Why would the government not find some way to bring the food in from some of these places rather than hire a food truck?
All right, the 210 corridor.
Yeah, very, very flexible.
Amy, could you,
Ways of looking at this.
Yeah.
Amy, could you elaborate a little more about the food trucks on base?
Am I allowed to do that now?
Sure, because Commissioner Davis just asked you to, and I think. No, go ahead, please do.
Really quickly. So part of working for the government is you have to put in your hours, so people don't get like 2-hour lunch breaks, okay? They get like 30 minutes. It takes sometimes time to get off the base. We have Caligeros, which gets eaten all the time. Subway gets eaten all the time. Pizzeria up here. Elbow is delicious. And those are about the only ones you can get to within your commute time and off the base. Okay, to supplement that, because some crews are, they work longer hours, those who've been there, they got permission to bring on 2, like, food trucks. They alternate. One is a ribs place locally. They competed the contract. Everything's competed in this environment. And another one is, I'm sorry, because I've stopped at them and I don't even know the name, but they come and kind of park in a centrally located area where people can pick up sandwiches, salads, people want salads, and also supplement. So people are making money by thinking non-traditional ways of doing business, understanding their clients' availability is where I was going with that.
So it's a base contract to bring in other food vendors? in other
Yes,
words.
and that's through the host. I don't want to go. The host of the base, NAVFAC, coordinates things like that. Okay, but there are people making business opportunities. Was where I was going. Understanding there is a market there for maybe early morning and lunchtime. It doesn't do dinners and stuff like that. Okay. Thank you. Hopefully that's helpful, and we can get you more data.
That's why my granddaughter stops at my house every morning for coffee and leftovers last night.
Can't comment on
She
that.
works at the base.
Can't comment on that. I was just,
Well, pop-up food trucks are also a kind of an economic development, an evolving economic development tool that's being used, like retail, shoes, clothes, services, airports. So that's a whole nother fascinating thing to possibly drill down in terms of opportunities when you talk about needing to get some core services for the community here. Trucks, food trucks, pop-up stores, whatever it might be, is a whole area to explore because it's a gateway. It puts the placeholder down, people get used to getting the service, and then they move on. So something to think about as an opportunity. Okay, 210 corridor. North of the county line, there are some clusters, there's some cooperation opportunities, there's some competition. I know there's been, they stole that from us kind of competition. I mean, we can just put down what some of the opportunities and challenges are within that corridor area quickly and then move on.
National Harbor,
Wow.
I'm sorry?
National Harbor,
That's an opportunity?
oh yeah. And casinos and outlet malls and stores and everything, huge. And tie it to the airport, you're gonna have all these high rollers flying into Gilbert's Place, and somebody's gotta transport them.
So National Harbor helps make this area the gateway to National Harbor in Whitmore.
It can also be a challenge because this is a peninsula and everybody's going in one direction. We need to bring them back here to shop and eat here and not north.
The other thing is, 22 miles up the road, all the money in the world sits up there in Washington DC, and that's certainly an opportunity.
The proximity to DC is an opportunity.
For all the money in the world. And print more.
The water taxi is an opportunity.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The water taxi
is an opportunity.
Any economic development initiatives in the upper part of the corridor that could be piggybacked onto?
I think National Harbor is probably the main one that everybody is focused on. Maybe a little bit of retail along in through there. Gil's got something.
I just wanted to inform you that once that article came out in the county paper about National Harbor going for a casino, that particular day I got a phone call from the chief pilot for MGM. Wanted to know when the airport would be finished. It's going to, National Harbor is going to be a real attraction to bring Charles County into the picture. Well, where it goes from there, that's the county's problem.
Need an FBO, you need a executive fuel service?
Yeah, that's out of my realm.
Does anybody, I'm just curious, see it as a threat too, with potential overflow that gambling might bring, given some of the history of Charles County? I mean, could that be seen as a threat?
It's definitely a challenge.
No, challenge, sorry, I was using the
Yeah,
wrong word,
yeah.
thank you.
I believe it's definitely a challenge. And we have to stay ahead of it.
Okay, recreation, regulation, and the environment. Funny how the three of those go hand in hand at times, isn't it? Strengths,
Recreation, I'm sorry.
recreation, regulation, and the environment. Thank you, and its opportunities. And we defined a lot earlier some of those assets, so where are the opportunities?
Here's where I want to bring up this opportunity so that we don't miss this one with the Washington Post property.
Okay, duly noted, 20 acres.
Thank you for remembering that, Peggy.
Wolf trap without the wolf trap traffic headache.
Sorry, I'm going to digress a moment because we put something up on the board that some of us don't understand. What is a casino-related challenge? What does that mean?
The question, I guess, is there a casino-related challenge in that if you have the casino and then you have the gambling, does that bring other kinds of businesses that might not be the businesses that we want that spill over into the county?
Is that the casino in National Harbor or somewhere else in the?
Well, somewhere in Prince George's County, because there's 3 sites that are still under consideration.
And one of them could be.
What type of businesses would be bad?
Well, I'm going back to the history of Charles County, back in the 60s, when Charles County kind of had a seedy, up and down the 301 corridor.
When it was the Las Vegas of the East Coast?
No, she's talking about we had.
What did we have?
We
Because
had
I wasn't here
strip
then.
clubs
What?
and,
Strip club.
It's pawn shops, strip clubs, some of the one, I think, is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
You're talking
exactly.
about yeah. I think businesses that maybe, it sounds like we're talking about businesses, the one-offs that often follow casinos.
See, because all those were here when I moved down here, and there were no gambling casinos on the Waldorf corridor, so I was.
They were still there.
So they were leftovers?
still there.
Okay.
So,
okay.
and when
Just
you
trying to
asked the
understand
question
what-
for clarification, did you also mean things like, just so I understand, like the rise in gamblers possibly creating, a pool of people that maybe are defaulting on home mortgages or going to Gamblers Anonymous? I mean,
And that's a concern, I guess, that was raised by
I
some.
think that's what I think of when I think of concern.
I wasn't thinking about the other piece, so that's why I was curious as
Okay.
to what that kind of umbrella category meant.
So maybe a better way we could phrase that in terms of a weakness or a challenge might be the potential or the threat for either businesses or demographical shifts or,
Yes. Where did we do that one? Yeah.
I have a challenge in this category. We are not, I think we would have an easier time attracting a grocery store if they could sell beer and wine in the grocery store. And we don't have like what Montgomery County has and other places. Our county has decided, because of whatever regulation, not to allow beer and wine in grocery stores.
so the zoning or challenges the restriction of selling beer and wine.
And that makes for a recreation opportunity.
That's state, that's not county.
State liquor license, whatever that regulation
Okay.
is that causes
But
our
that's still,
grocery
that's a challenge,
stores.
but I'm not sure what category, so I'm just gonna make an other here.
I kind of saw why you put it in recreation, because I just came across, Virginia has a rail trail and, like, they have an ale and trails program, where they promote the craft breweries and their trails, which I'm like, I could no sooner drink a beer and drive on the trail, but whatever, I guess some people, I think you're supposed to go to the ale afterwards, maybe. I'm kidding, I know. But I did think that was clever, but
Yeah. So I'll put it in both places then.
I think the regulations are really heavy-sided for businesses, and it's very hard to open your doors. At least that's what we found. It's a very long, drawn-out process, not clearly.
At the state level or at the county?
I will be honest, I don't really know where the lines are drawn.
Town, county, and state.
Okay, thank you.
Because we all follow the same law.
Okay.
We have a challenging regulatory environment for business in Maryland, and so Charles County is caught up in that.
Okay. We've got a minute left on this challenge of recreation
Challenging
regulation.
tax policy.
Yes? Yes.
We have a recreational opportunity with a boardwalk along the Potomac River, but the challenge is it's caught up in regulations.
Okay, that's an excellent one. Biggest challenge is visibility.
Well, and that's been said a couple of times
Yeah.
today, and marketing what assets are here to the outside for tourism.
I'm sorry, what?
Marketing challenge, just in marketing the recreational
And the visibility. Because I would tell you that, the opportunity or the strength here is the product is unequaled. So it's just getting that connectivity.
I'm gonna write that down.
Oh my gosh, we're on to the next one.
Well,
already.
no, I like abiding by certain regulations that have been set by other political, people, or, yeah, by previous leadership, not abiding by them, changing like the wind, changing in midstream happens here, and it's unfortunate.
I think that speaks to what Craig was saying earlier about the institutional commitment to sticking with these long-term policies, such that you don't have a even riskier business environment, and which is a detractor to businesses who want to take the risk to come here. It's risky enough to start a business. It's even riskier if you can't trust, your government to stick to their plan, to get a plan, stick to the plan, and keep the plan for the length of time necessary for a business to grow and thrive.
So an opportunity is perhaps to advocate for sound policies, that are not subject to political whim, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But again, it's an opportunity because you can advocate for it. All right, in terms of just kind of an economic development 101, anything else that we've talked about that wasn't alluded to earlier? To your point, we have covered a lot of this. Outlined either in the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, or the challenges that you just want to put down for the sake of the group so that we can have our breakouts. Because I think there have been a few things that are clearly rising to the top that we just want to drill down a little bit deeper and understand what can the local government do, what can the county government do, what can the state be asked to do, and what's in the federal control that, God help us. I mean, what can we all do?
And the other, and I'm going to say it, NIMBYs. That's a challenge.
Does everyone know what she's talking about? Because I don't.
Not in my
Oh,
backyard.
no, I know what the acronym means.
Bananas.
I meant in regards to, in what piece of it?
How about a banana, though? It's worse than NIMBY. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything.
Well,
I like that.
Andrea, let me just tell you, for the National Association of Realtors, I cover 8 states. Economic redevelopment and economic revitalization of declining downtown areas is a big thing, and I see it everywhere. And everywhere, you get these beautiful plans in place, and they look great on those maps. And if you have not educated the surrounding community as to what is happening when you when you put that first public notice up that they're going to tear down this old building and put up a mixed-use, high-rise, retail on the bottom, condos on the top, or apartments, the neighborhood comes out and goes insane. So we have to, you want to do something to educate the public, and I think it also goes to what Evie was saying, is that without that they come out, the NIMBYs will come out, or your bananas, I love that, Peggy, bananas and NIMBYs come out and fill the rooms and cause elected officials sometimes to be less than committed to the land use and growth policies that they supported and enacted. So NIMBY education is important, and it's a challenge.
But it's an opportunity too, I think, Paula, because if there is that outreach that from the beginning that results in this kind of a discussion, then it becomes an opportunity.
An education plan could be
Yeah,
an
so I like how you
opportunity.
put that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, advocacy and lobbying starts at home.
Yes, it does.
Right? I mean, the first place
Yes,
you've got to
it
start
does.
is, some people always say to me when you're doing destination marketing, who's your audience? Who are you trying to attract? I'm like, locals. If the people that live in the community don't use the recreational assets, then don't expect anyone else to.
Wow. And
Which
you know
is,
what?
which is why roundtables like this are so important.
Yep, thank you, Doris.
And the fact that it is being recorded, it gives an opportunity for everyone to see. And I think that, for me alone, this has been absolutely great and informative. People want information. And what's happening here today is providing information while at the same time giving them an opportunity to either buy into or to express to the whomever they need their disagreement. But this is what it's all about today.
It's very transparent, and it does reflect this great insight that I think is so obvious in this room.
I want to get back to something you just said about the local, because I think that that's a very important point when it comes to this part of the county. I lived in Waldorf for many, many years, and I never came to Indian Head. I didn't know that Indian Head was here. I didn't know what was here in Indian Head. And I remember when the first few productions happened at the Black Box Theater, I don't remember how many years ago, 7, 8 years ago. They were fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And I would come see these fabulous productions, and there'd be 10 people in the audience. And I'm thinking, why aren't people from La Plata and Waldorf coming to Indian Head? And I do think that we do have a local audience in Indian Head, and my gosh, this fabulous state park that we have up here is such a wonderful resource. I know earlier, oh, he's still here, this gentleman who rents kayaks on the Mattawoman Creek. I mean, it's one of the few places you can come to Charles County if you don't own a kayak and still be able to get out on the water on a kayak. And people from the other parts of the county aren't coming here. So I'm glad you said that, because it just suddenly made me realize that is a marketing opportunity.
River Trails, love it. Okay, well that was, I love your iPad and the fact that it keeps keeping us on time. So we would love to do breakout groups now. We were supposed to be doing the reports now. All right, this is the last time I come down to Indian Head to facilitate anything. So I think the best way to do that is we have, let me just describe again the 4 groups, tell you who the leaders are. Facilitators or breakout leaders are responsible for recording.
And you know what, we are short one breakout leader. If somebody would like to volunteer, Sheila is going to be one of our leaders. Sue Greer is going to be one of our leaders. Quasi is going to be one of our leaders. One of our leaders was unable to make it at the last minute, so we need one more breakout leader. So who's going to volunteer?
Evie's a great breakout leader. She's always been, she's done it for years. She's really phenomenal.
Evie, you've been volunteering. Thank you.
Nothing like a democracy.
I'll be right. And each group is going to need a note taker, so whoever wants to volunteer to be the note taker within your group.
Actually, the 4 breakout groups look similar to what we were just doing, which is why we were trying to cut that a little bit short here, and that we're going to look at the base. So anything attendant to the base, energetics, contracting, tech transfer, food trucks. 210 corridor, the whole corridor. This portion of the corridor, the northern portion of the corridor, go to National Harbor if you want. Anything that was discussed with regards to the corridor as kind of a physical space and an opportunity. Third is not a place, it's a thing. It's recreation, regulation, and the environment. I think, again, there's been a lot of things that have been said here, and an opportunity to think about city, town, county, state, in terms of responses. And then I just threw everything else as an economic development 101. Small business, quality of life, the arts, education. Not that they're any less important than anything else, but they speak to the whole fabric of the community. So we're going to break out for only about 20 minutes. And what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to assign the breakout leaders in 1 second, is look at, is there anything that happened in the past hour and a half in the SWOC portion of this session that wasn't said, that you think is germane or key? Be it a regulation issue, a specific regulation, whatever it might be. Put that down first so that everyone's on the same page. The second is, for each issue or suggestion that came out of today, identify whether, and if you need help, raise your hand. There's enough subject matter experts in the room. Whether the matter's primarily local control, county control, under the state's jurisdiction, or under the federal government's. Recognizing, and I think someone said it earlier, many of these are cross-jurisdictional issues, but just primarily, who's got the responsibility for that? And then of those issues that are local or county, if you can rank the top 3 that you think are most critical, and why? Because that's going to help us focus on, you'll excuse my using the expression, low-hanging fruit, things that the commissioners can walk out of this room and hopefully evaluate and enact sooner rather than later, which gives an opportunity to show this process underway. And then we would ask you to think about 2 additional things. For these priorities, what individuals or groups could be most helpful? So a bad example might be if we're talking about the airport, and it's determined that, well, it would be really helpful to have the Maryland Aviation Administration do X, Y, or Z, then we know the MAA would be instrumental or would be most helpful in that. So thinking about who the person or the group is that might be most helpful. And then what resources or programs are available. So I don't mean to pick on Evie, but we talked about the arts and entertainment districts, what resources or programs might be available. The A&E district designation, which gives grant funding to the county arts council, which could then be a pass-through if it was an A&E district. Does that make sense? So there's resources or programs that you may or may not know of, but as we're looking at some of these, just to think through, if you don't know the name of the program, it would be helpful if we had an income tax modification program for any artist who moved into Indian Head to work and make a craft and not pay any Maryland income taxes. That program exists, by the way. So, you can. So I think that was it. So we're going to take 20 minutes. We're going to stop at 12:30-ish. We'll give you a 5-minute warning before we break.
Yeah, we'll take a few minutes to rearrange
Yeah.
chairs.
Take a few minutes,
And
rest,
where
stretch.
who's the leader of Group
I'm
1, 2,
gonna
3,
do that right
4?
next.
Yeah,
Thank you,
right.
Quasi.
Okay.
How about, who are our 4 leaders again? You've got Evie, Sheila, Sue, and Quasi.
Right.
I'm thinking of those 4 topics. Is there any person who's got a subject matter expertise that's more aligned with what we just
Everyone's
outlined?
arts.
Okay, Evie, you're Economic Development 101. That's Group 4. So just remember that. Economic Development Group 4. Indian Head Base. Sheila, Quasi, and
Sheila,
Sue.
probably.
Okay? Sheila, you're the base? That's Group 1. Group 2 is 210 Corridor. Quasi, that's you, I just decided. Which leaves Sue for Group 3, which is Recreation, Regulation, and the Environment. Good? Okay, so Group 1 is going to be here, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4. So basically, take each quadrant and move your chairs, and we'll move these guys out so that you have some space and you don't hear one another talking over each other. But we're going to start that in 2 minutes. Everybody stretch. We'll move some chairs.
You've been watching Part 2 of the Western Charles County Roundtable. To continue watching this event, check Charles County Government's digital library or YouTube page. You can also catch this and many other informative meetings by tuning into CCG TV. Thanks for watching.
So then going back and trying to kind of circle, so with respect to the first question, you see Indian Head more as a destination site and Bryan's Road more as a commercial.
It already is. It's a commercial hub for Western Charles County, mainly because it's intercepting people who are driving from DC to Waldorf. That's why the store's located there. They can capture Indian Head and all that traffic from Waldorf. Why would they put them down here when they're only going to capture it?
Acton Peak really is more so than because of the fact that the 220. I mean, I see Bryan's Road as a threat. Turning it into a big city will threaten the revitalization of Indian.
It will unless it needs its destinations.
Yeah.
What, and I'm sorry, Bonnie, what did you just say?
Just that, one of the threats is the idea of massive development in Bryan's Road. They're proposing 8,000 to 10,000 housing units. Indian Head should be revitalized and reinvested in Western Charles County, and no annexation, because it should get its core.
But doesn't that conflict though then with making it a destination site?
I don't think it does at all. I think people are going to want to get away from Bryan's Road because it's going to be a lot of people, a lot of chain restaurants
Well,
and
if it doesn't
stores.
get turned into...
They're going to want to come to a small town on the water where there's,
but it gives some attractions. I mean, it's just a short drive down the road. I think it would become a destination area for people to come to, just like Leonardtown is. You've been to Leonardtown.
Art.
Yeah, you
music
can
festivals.
move the Black Box Theater down here. You can make it an art.
And the environment is the hugest attraction to Indian Head is the environment.
It's not going to be able to compete with Bryan's Road. It's just not going to.
But Indian Head can benefit from as Bryan's roads grow.
Right, as there's, well, and I think the balance is the commercial development in Bryan's Road could benefit Indian Head because then the residents could locate there, take advantage of the destination, but drive to Bryan's Road for the commercial. Does that
support in Bryan's Road for turning it back into a village, which was what it was? There is a lot of opposition to turning Bryan's Road into a town center with 8,000 to 10,000 housing units. It's not appropriate.
Is it too late for that body? Is it already passed?
Oh, it's already
tipping point.
Well, that's the Bryan's Road sub-area plan, Steve. That's what that is.
But the merge scenario and scenario one both get it as a village, and there's still a lot of support for that.
But how do...
Remember Chapman State Park, which has been very little today. And that's a big asset. Certainly for those who want to come in. Hopefully the amenities to develop there.
And Chapman State Park is a huge buffer between Indian Head and Bryan's Road.
Okay, so what... If let me say, because I've got to report back on this, so that I would say the issue, and you all tell me, because is ensuring complementary development between Indian Head and Bryan's Road. Would that be a fair statement?
I think so. Elaborate on what.
Well, I think that's the question.
Focusing on the town of Indian Head as a destination with reinvestment and revitalization in the town itself. Presently, there's a plan to annex all the way down to 225 and all the way down almost to the Mattawoman Creek. And that annexation is land that's forested, it's supporting the creek, and it's inappropriate to annex Indian Head at this time because there's so much that needs to be revitalized inside Indian Head, the existing Indian Head.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheaper to build on undeveloped raw land than it is
there should be some kind of
tear down old buildings and revitalize, rebuild.
So
that's a problem.
It's a problem. So there should be some form of government subsidy to help that happen as opposed to losing the forests that are supporting that.
So, well, let's, because we have such a short time, so complementary development with Indian Head as a destination location and focusing on the revitalization of Indian Head.
And not trying to compete with Bryan's Road.
Not competing with Bryan's Road.
We're doing the 210 corridor, so who wants to give the first comment? Let's start with the base and go to National Harbor, because one thing I found coming down here is, and I should know this as well as anybody, it doesn't look like a lot of the area is commercially zoned, or is it along after you leave, you know, on the way down here? It doesn't seem like the right side of the road is commercially zoned at all.
I don't know the zoning, Bob. I don't know if you know the zoning up and down the corridor.
When you hit the county line,
right,
it's commercially zoned both sides all the way down.
Right.
But above that, it's mostly residential.
Right.
In PG County.
Okay.
Well, you know that.
Right, right. And no, I was just looking at the Chapman Landing side of the road. Is the frontage commercially zoned, or? Okay. Right. So Are there opportunities? What's your experience in terms of leasing any of those areas?
Is it because of price? Is it because of just no interest in?
Well, you need a customer base. If you look at how we look at somebody who say they're going to put a store in, and we work with those people and we say to them, or they say to us, where is our customer base going to come from? What is in a 3-mile radius of this store? Say we're talking about the store, the CVS down here at the bottom of the hill. That 3-mile radius would take in the river, you know, Mattawoman. We'd be in Virginia on part of that radius. So what has to happen is that radius has to be elongated, and you have to take in those subdivisions that are in PG County that are alongside of that and try to get the customer that's going to put the store in to believe that they would be a viable customer. I think that they would.
I've been to the Black Box, and you know I love it, and I live in La Plata, and the problem with is accessibility. It's nighttime. I don't want to drive Bumpy Oak Road at night.
Right.
I mean, and you guys know me. I love the theater. I would, you know, and I think that's part of that's one of the biggest weaknesses to promoting an arts and entertainment district in the town of Indian Head is
Access.
you've got to be able to get to it.
I think the Cross County Connector, currently we don't have people coming from Waldorf to here.
No.
The people here that want to go to Waldorf will get there somehow. The people in Waldorf that want to come here aren't going to travel the roller coaster ride of Billingsley Road that's narrow up and down.
Bumpy Oak from La Plata.
Make sure you get that.
I had,
Let me add something.
it's hard to,
because,
can't come soon enough, hard to get to. The visibility on roads at night is poor. People aren't coming from Waldorf.
That's great. Now, we're looking at, she had all these things, anything not said. So is this is part of some things that are not said.
And if you guys
I've
could
lived
give
in
me...
the county, I'm sorry, you know, I've lived in the county 25 years, and in that time it seems like, not the town of Indian Head, but certainly at the county and the state level, every effort's been undertaken to limit residential growth on the western side of the county. And without reversing that, at least to some degree, I don't think you'll ever have the number of rooftops that you need to really to attract back a grocery store to operate here, to attract even small restaurants, because those are very much driven. Wayne knows this, Paula knows this much better than I do. But they're going to look at rooftops, not just rooftops that are here, but rooftops that they can expect to be here over a 10, 15,
So have the
20-year
developers stopped
period.
looking at the western side of the county completely?
There's just so much opposition to
Yeah.
this side of the county to any condo.
I think there's a basic,
living
we
that
will
for
never be
years.
able to provide enough rooftops in the town of Indian Head to draw economic development. What we need to do is augment our market demand by importing
Why don't
people.
you, not to cut you off, but why don't you do like other towns do? Why don't you annex more land into Indian Head and create more room to grow?
Listen to, give him a minute to respond so that you got that question.
Why don't we annex more land to Indian Head?
Yeah, don't doubt you, it's just my brain.
No, and I'm hoping that if at the end, if you
And there
can
may
give me
be a
enough
good
time to
answer,
read
I
all
just
of this
don't-
back out, I can edit back up what
Sure.
doesn't sound like it was
Go ahead,
supposed to.
I'm sorry.
That's an excellent point.
We're
Very.
annexed out to the Mattawoman Creek. We're annexed out to the Potomac River. We're annexed out to the naval base. And now, when Glendenning purchased Chapman's Landing property, we're annexed out north.
You're boxed in.
We're boxed
Boxed in.
Okay. Within the area that's
Technically, we can annex across the creek, but they would be sort of
Isolated.
isolated in what, in which direction is it? They would be eastern Indian Head. There's no
Start to get into delivery of service.
no easy connection between here and there. We don't have a bridge or across the creek. You got to go up and around and back
you go
down.
around the park. You can go around things. I would say put a group together and study potential growth area for Indian Head. And if it's not Indian Head incorporate it.
You can't
You
really
get
go.
boundary issues with annexation, though,
Yeah,
Wayne.
you can't really go around, you have to be nexus, you have to be connected, there has to be a link, a connection.
Sewer and
Now,
water.
well, not just sewer and water, but we can't annex land up in Bryan's Road unless we annex Chapman's Landing Park.
Well, does Chapman Landing cross 210?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's,
They're boxed in.
would there ever be the potential that the state would allow some sort of access through the other side of the property,
And that gets back to my larger point about there having to be a commitment from, not just from Indian,
Yes.
but from the county and the state to provide, so on a vision of growth for what the western side is, but the policies that are going to act there. And that's, I keep hearing 10 years.
Transportation.
10 years, a lot of
And
things
it doesn't
can
have
take
to
10
be
years.
just
to
more than
happen.
10
grow up.
years. It's 20-some years. It's not a
Well,
town problem.
that's
It's
the
a
other
county
thing, Mayor. I
problem.
mean, just, instead of going out, go up.
Yeah.
To increase density that way.
How far up would we have to get enough accumulated rooftops to draw?
You'd have to study that.
No one can answer
Well,
that question
nobody
for
can
us.
answer that question for me. We've been looking at this for 20 years now, since I've been in the town of Indian Head.
They just say you don't have enough.
They keep saying we need more rooftops, so we've annexed and we've provided more rooftops, and they still tell me I need more rooftops. So I ask them, well, how many rooftops do I need? So I have a number that I can,
Who are you asking?
The grocery store.
developers and,
Hire an economist to give you that answer. Study it. Hire an economist to do that.
It's got to be open competition, so they got to meet that criteria to get selected. So we got to just acknowledge that the way we buy things has changed tremendously, and how do you do that? So we made the analogy to Dahlgren. Dahlgren buys services. We buy things.
Yes.
We don't buy services anymore.
Why is that?
Because we don't get funded to buy services.
Okay, you don't
We're at
wanna-
the end of the
yeah.
pipeline, not at the beginning. I don't like these answers. And I should say, I'm only talking about the NSWC piece. I can't talk about what CBERF's needs are. I was just talking to, that there are 5 or 6 entities on the base now, plus the host himself. There's 2,400 people and businesses over there. I can only talk about my piece. They have needs for customer service and support, and the base may, but we NSWC have gone to not so much buying services anymore because we love that, but our budgets have crunched down that kind of workload, but we're always buying things or intellect. We're buying things and intellect. And that, though, we have to compete through. If I could get a machine shop locally, I'd be golden, but that's hard. It's hard. It's hard with the regulations and the environmental girl. Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem too.
So how do you shape to that demand?
People see the base,
Oh, I'm sorry.
not just the WC.
That's what I'm also wanting. I talked to you on the phone about was the host here because they buy the lawnmowers and things like that.
Auburn and Max River have gotten the services added to their cadre of things they do that don't have the people to do them. And that's what you're talking about, the service contracts.
Yeah,
So they contract out this thing and they have a small core group that manages it.
Right.
And if we want to expand Indian Head, that's the way we want to expand as far as the town and the county are concerned.
So we have to, I said it, but that's probably enough, is across the whole portfolio inside that gate, which now includes EOD, who does contract for a lot of services. Is what are the forecasted sequestration or needs? And then keep that up to because you can't chase a business that way, but at least you can identify the opportunities, right?
Well, we can't, if we would sit down, if the town or the county would sit down at the base and say, what is it, what kind of support do you need? You can't dictate, you can't say it, but you're going to compete it.
So we have industrial
days.
We have industrial days all the time, and depending on who's in the room, we try to have those conversations. We do try to have those conversations. I don't know if we've ever done one just with the local. I'd have to ask the Penny Kennedy, but we try to at least forecast demand.
Yeah.
So I don't see anything that prohibits that, but having it just with me is not fully exploring the opportunities.
All right, so we have 4 reports, and we're going to try and keep each one to no more than 5 minutes. If you can do it in under 5 minutes, you get the prize. It's kind of like horseshoes. Whoever gets closer to the lowest number. Let's start with group number 1, which is Indian Head, and the Indian Head leader
Sheila.
is Sheila.
Okay, so we were talking about the naval base, and this is really going to be short because we had a lot of conversation. So as far as the obstacles that we needed to address, we found out from Amy, that federal funding has really changed the way that they do business. And so the same types of services that maybe traditional contractors may have been able to, get contracts through, they're just not as readily available anymore. So we talked about maybe other types of businesses, and just as an example, Amy brought up the machine shop. So we need to maybe pursue other ideas of industry that we hadn't thought of before that we could bring to this side of the county to support the Navy. Another issue was, as she mentioned earlier, not enough services for the employees down there. So those types of businesses could be brought in. Food services, doctors, dentists, all those things people would rather do on their lunch hour or on their way home. And those were really the top 2 issues that we saw. Some of the, advocates for helping us through those issues would be the small business office down on the base. That would be the first place for a contractor to approach to find out what kind of services would be needed. And we did discuss, we found out that some of the contractors who still do business with Indian Head actually moved to other parts of the county, partially because they wanted too much money for rental properties, lease agreements, and the buildings were in disrepair. So you could get a nice new building, say over in La Plata, cheaper than you could have a older, not so accommodating building here. So that's kind of, I don't know who you'd have to go to the business owner, I guess, to discuss, do you really want to rent your buildings out, or do you want to still see them vacant? And the real big issue is that even the businesses that are here in town and on the corridor, people don't know about them. And so the marketing of that, and I guess that would be the local community and government marketing what is already here and letting the people behind the gate know that they're there. That's all I got.
That's great. All right, excellent. Next up is group number 2.
I'm an actor without a script, but that will soon change.
Thank you, Vanna.
Right. Let's see. We talked about the 210 corridor, and we talked about the access. There was a lot of discussion about access to resources that baby boomers need in terms of grocery stores, pharmacies, and things of that nature. We had a wonderful discussion about the kinds of 3-mile concentric circles that retailers are looking for, and the fact that they have to be kind of elongated here. We talked about this 30-minute lunch policy, which I still don't understand, but that's for another day. But we talked about that in comparison to other bases that we've known and loved over the years, and how there's a big in and outflow almost any moment of the day. And it's funny because I was able to look out the window here, and you could look at it right now, and there are like 1, 2 cars going back and forth. We talked about some of the shops being drawn from the community into the base, and how that has a kind of a negative effect on, you know, business in the community. We talked about the planning efforts that were underway, and we also talked about the joint land use study that's about to occur and how that may be a way to get more communication between the town and the base in terms of wants, needs, talked about the participation of people from the base in the day-to-day life of the community. And I think we also talked about state and county resources that can be brought to bear to help move this along. But I think part of what we heard was that after 9/11, the gates became iron, and, you know, it was just, you know, it's a security concern, but nevertheless, it's had a negative effect on the community going forward. I didn't need a script for that, actually. It came back to me.
Excellent. Okay, third group is recreation, regulation, and the environment, or some permutation thereof.
Okay, so the first comment from our group is we thought that was an interesting mix of things that you threw into one group. Because maybe you might want to talk about recreation and the environment, or recreation and regulations, or regulations in the environment, but throwing them all three together seemed to us to be an interesting mix, in that we would need more than 20 minutes and maybe like hours to get through all of that. But in the end, the discussion, it was a very good discussion, as you can imagine. It had very diverse opinions with respect to that. But what came out of the discussion is really a distinction between Bryan's Road and Indian Head, and that they are two very different entities, but they are entities that should be developed with a vision and land use plan that should complement each other and not compete with each other. That they should also fit into a larger land use plan that complements the rest of the county and does not compete with the rest of the county, such as the goals for Waldorf, or potentially the goals even we could say for Hughesville. And with respect to Indian Head, the issue of a vision was particularly important to the group. And that is that while we need to make sure that the infrastructure is in place, what the group thought is that Indian Head really needed to have a vision, and then needed to go forward with a plan to implement that vision, working with the county. And one of the interesting points that was brought up, for example, was we heard that Indian Head needs a grocery store, that the citizens there would like that, although there's a grocery store on Bryan's Road. But it also called out another comment that was made during this roundtable about the fact that the base has a ready-made population. And the point was made that a lot of the amenities that ready-made customer base, they can actually get those on the base, as opposed to get those in Indian Head. And so it was thought that perhaps the vision for Indian Head, which would be distinct from the vision for Bryan's Road, would be one that it would be a destination place, a place that you would go to enjoy the natural, and Steve, correct me if I get off track on this, that you would go to enjoy the natural resources of the Mattawoman, and the kayaking, the arts center, versus what you would want to do in Bryan's Road, which would be try to increase your commercial base there and increase the scorecard in the county by raising that 30% up and creating a strong commercial base at that location. But again, that requires a review of the plans to ensure that those visions occur. Having said that, did I get that right, Steve? Okay. So complementary development with Indian Head as a destination and Bryan's Road more as a commercial. But then, of course, that leads to the environment, which I would have to say is somewhat of the issue in the room, because the environment is an asset, an opportunity, and a concern. Because it is an asset, everybody here spoke about how beautiful this part of the county is, how we need to preserve our natural resources, so it is an asset. It creates an opportunity from us on a business level to develop in an economically and environmentally sustainable way,
It also creates an opportunity to draw people to this area to appreciate that asset. It is a concern, though, because whenever you have business or development, you have to deal with the environmental constraints of the Mattawoman and ensure that you are addressing those, and that will create regulatory hurdles for businesses wishing to develop here. So, for example, the airport, and we talked about the fact that the airport would assist in raising that commercial base and drawing businesses to the airport that enhance it, but that also appreciate, see, I'm coming down to my one. I told you gave me too much to talk about. That also appreciate the open spaces. And then, did I cover everything? Okay. So then with respect to regulation, there were concerns with regulations. The concerns were if you're a business looking to locate in this part of the county, and I think this is actually countywide, concerns were raised about the length of time it takes for a business to be able to site itself and locate, not just in the western Charles County, but anywhere in the county. Second concern was raised is the process. The process isn't always clear, and sometimes the process is inconsistent. So the process needs to have consistency and clarity. There you have it.
Yeah, wow. Wow. All right. Last but not least, number 4, right?
Yes, I am number 4, and
Everything else, you got the kitchen sink.
I certainly, everything else, I am the kitchen. And because the thumb is faster than the pen, and because we had so many interesting people on our committee, I have asked my friend here, Donna Fleischer, who used her thumbs to go through our questions, because my head couldn't take it all quite. But started off with the town and questioning the mayor extensively, and we talked about marketing, and he assures us that there is to be a new web page, and they have a very nice newsletter and enhancing distribution of, say, flyers and what have you. We also question him, and she's going to read the questions with some brief answers, although there was nothing brief about our answers. That what did he feel about the cross-county connector? The position for the town is that they are certainly all for it. So that's all part of marketing, to be able to say that we have these avenues, and it was brought up, and I don't know if you have that there from one of our committee members, that driving over here at night on some of these roads is a dangerous thing. So I'm going to turn this over to Donna, and she's going to give you what she texted for our...
The question came up whether there was a divide between the vision for the town, between the mayor and the council in general, because of the opening remarks from the mayor. Didn't mention arts, and the answer was no, the mayor's remarks ran out of time. That's not an issue happening here, but it may be an issue happening elsewhere in the county where the government body isn't working as a whole and conveying the same ideas. The question of what marketing was being done to both market the arts and also the renovation of the arts. And the mayor answered that the webpage was being updated. Currently the site is government-oriented, which is the wrong approach. The plan is to put the visitor information more clearly up front, the goal being to draw visitors into the arts, the recreation, and the business development of the town. The question of what the plan for the inter-county connector, and the answer was it couldn't come soon enough. The area is hard to get to. Visibility on roads at night is poor, and while residents from this area go to Waldorf, people aren't coming here from Waldorf. At the county and state level, every effort's been taken to limit residential growth in the western part of the county. It prevents grocery stores and restaurants. Businesses feel that in order to open, there need to be more rooftops, more residential, and developers feel that there's too much restriction in this area, so they're not moving to here. The question was, why don't we annex more land to Indian Head? And the answer was that it's annexed to Mattawoman Creek, Potomac, the Potomac River, and it's boxed in. Technically, we can annex across the creek, but it would be isolated. And the question follow-up was, could we put a group together and study a potential growth area? And the answer was, we can't, there isn't a link or a connection. The comment was made that there needs to be commitment from the county and state, and it would take more than 10 years, that the 10-year goal is actually limiting. The the question was raised, could Indian Head be extended north, and would that provide more rooftops, which would attract more businesses? And the concern was answered that they're having a difficult time finding an answer for that. It was suggested that an economist be hired to look at answers for that and help make that determination. There was a concern that there was pushback from environmental groups when expansion was attempted. However, National Harbor was brought up as a counterexample of that, where the environment was a concern and it still worked, and National Harbor is now thriving. Townhouses, including the Riverwatch, are doing very well. And the question was asked, are they sold out? And it was yes, some are sold out and up for resale, some are renter occupied, and more townhomes are coming. Can we have more residential growth with community amenities to attract people? And yes, it can be required. However, the realtors are studying smart growth, and it's not popular for residents to be close to businesses. They prefer to be able to drive. So it seems to be that cul-de-sacs and yards are what people in this community are wanting to move here for. It was discussed tearing down the current strip shopping center and building a multi-story that could be a mix of business and residential. The concern that restaurants, coffee shops, and car washes in the area open and then close. And the comment was made that the purchase of the Chapman Landing property to be a state park contributed to the economic decline of Indian Head and Bryan's Road. Why aren't we challenging the state to help? And the major priority of, we need an economic development authority that's a mix of public and private, similar to Lexington Park, funded by state, county, town, that's tasked with getting economic development in western Charles County. That could be a conduit for arts and entertainment. The town is small and has a limited budget, but the redevelopment of a waterfront like Alexandria would work. In the past, the committee of 100 each put in $1,000 each to do things the county wouldn't, and a similar approach to that would work. The Chamber of Commerce instituted the Economic Development Committee because what happens in economic development when it is under county control is that it only has 4 years, and a longer period of time needs to be done.
Okay. Well, you took a little bit of a different tact, but I think you got to some good places, and boy, there's a lot there. When I first sat down, after having driven my 3+ hours to get here, of which I enjoyed the last stretch the most, and I was thinking about the bike trip when you guys opened up the Indian Head Trail, because my husband and I were so looking forward to that trail. We love rail trails. It's, the 50-year-old, it's right up my alley. And coming down here and reminding myself how beautiful it was. The first thing I wrote was, it's not the end of the road, it's the start of something special when you get here. And that was before we started to talk today. It was just my little note to myself. And I actually took notes all the way down. I was recording what I saw, what I would change, what I would do. That's the economic development and marketing gal in me. I just can't stop myself. But I say that because in my estimation, having done this for almost 30 years, I really laud you. This is the start of something very special. Even when you're in a field and you're in a community and you're doing it time and time again, sometimes it's just that mashup when you come together with people from different sectors and different interests and at the right time in the right place, and you begin to find the common denominator. So thank you for inspiring me today. I'm going to go back home and be inspired to work within my community on a few things, lessons learned for me that I'm taking away. But I really do applaud you because this was very inspiring, and I will be touting as soon as I can figure out what's wrong with my data plan on my phone, the trail and the town and the black box and the arts and everything that I've seen today on my own personal as well as professional front. So thank you for having me. I'm going to turn it over to Marcia, who's really going to do the wrap up and tell you what's next and most important.
First of all, let's all give a big hand to Andrea. What an amazing job she has done today. This has just been a fabulous session. And now another big hand to yourselves for taking the time and being here and contributing to this. And thank you, Commissioner Davis, for being the spark to get this started, because this has been an amazing conversation. I think that there's been so much here. It's an awful lot to digest. And our next challenge is going to be to take it all and digest it, put it together, create a report of what was said today. We thank our media folks here who have taped everything, and the video is going to be available. And most importantly, I encourage everyone here, the panelists, anybody who sees the video, and the members of the public who were here, if you have additional comments that you have written down on the pages that were handed out, please feel free to leave them, and they will be added. But also, if you wake up in the middle of the night with a thought, please feel free to send me an email. My email address is keethm@meetcharlescounty.com. And you can send me an email, and that will be added as well. There's going to be follow-up, but like I said, we need to get everything together, and then we're going to look at what the next steps are, but you will be hearing about the next steps. So thank you again, everybody. Once we wrap up, and Commissioner Davis is going to have some final words, we will have lunch. The panelists, lunches for the panelists and staff. So you have your little ticket that you can take over there, and the folks who can be serving. I don't know if, do we have servers, Kimberly? Where is Kimberly? Okay, buffet style, so just help yourselves and enjoy lunch. And again, thank you very much. And Commissioner Davis.
I'm used to standing. Is this okay? I gotta use Evie's?
Uh-oh, I think I turned it off.
It says on. Is it on? Trying to set me up. Thank you guys so much. You could be doing anything today, but you decided to be here with us today, and this will not stop here. My job at this point, as your leader, as your fearless leader, is to move forward. Yes. You have my commitment to follow up. We are going to have a brief update at the Economic Summit. I will brief you at the Economic Summit as to what we've done from this point to that date, and that's October 22nd. It's my job to identify the low-hanging fruit, what we can deal with right now. The things that we can do, the things that we can take to the commissioners right now, we'll identify those things. Marcia and I and the Economic Development team, and we will put together what has happened today. So if you have additional stuff, make sure you get that in. If you have takeaways, if you have additional information, or if you would like to just share what you got out of today's session, I would love to hear it. I would love to make it part of the record for today. We did buy lunch from a local restaurant. Mama Stella's is providing lunch. And I have to do all the specific thank yous. You know what? When you start thinking about businesses in Western Charles County, you right away think about the Western Charles County Business Association. I called Vince, just like everybody I called. They jumped right on it. Vince says, "Yeah, I got ideas. Call this person. Call that person." Thank you so much for your enthusiasm. Thank you each for your enthusiasm. 100% of you said, "Yes, good idea, Deborah. Let's get it going." I know I stand in between you and lunch. Okay. Thanks to the host, the town of Indian Head. Thank you so much. You're always there. You're always there when we need you, and we really appreciate it. And to the staff, Karen Williams, Margaret Johnson, and Bunny Schuyler from the town of Indian Head, and our county staff. They are awesome. They were here the most of the day. John Stevens, Amy Blessinger, Kimberly Stevens, who was with us from the very beginning. Marcia took the lead for economic development on this. We have had 2 or 3 or 4 meetings making sure we have this together. Thank you guys so much for all the planning, and all of you. It is so important. Andrea, you did an awesome job. Thank you so much. That's it. Everybody, I learned from being in politics, and everybody likes to be thanked. So thank you so much. We just called Mr. Bunker last night. Thank you so much for jumping on. We knew you would, but I thank you so much. All right, that's it. Takeaways. Anything else you think we should do next? Somebody suggested a web page. If that's doable, we'll do that, because this needs to be retold, and it'll be on this TV station. No reason why it can't. Kim Dye just said it'll be on this station. She'll edit it. If you want copies, let us know. We'll put it somewhere so you can have copies also. Any other questions? Let's eat. Thank you so much.
You've been watching part 3 of the Western Charles County Roundtable. To continue watching this event, Check Charles County Government's digital library or YouTube page. You can also catch this and many other informative meetings by tuning in to CCG TV. Thanks for watching.